What is up, fellow MCOC players? Welcome to the channel today. Thanks for stopping by. I've had a lot of requests and a lot of I've had a lot of questions, comments, requests, people struggling with different quests in the final chapter of the road to the Labyrinth. And I figured, you know what, instead of kind of picking and choosing things out of the final chapter, I would just put together an entire series to help people out. So if you are struggling with one of the later quests, maybe 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, just hang tight. I will get to all of those, but we're going to go in order. So today we'll cover 4.1, the next video coming out will be 4.2, and so on and so forth. I think you get the picture. So, with that said, let's get into it. So before I dig into the first character, do keep in mind that in 4.1 there is a global node called Spiked Armor. So that just means that every character you face has the same node. Essentially, every time you hit the character and you crit, a portion of that crit damage is returned to you as damage. So definitely you'll want to make sure when you're putting your roster together that you stack several regen characters. That will help you be able to use fewer potions and fewer revives. The other way to get around that is to use Crossbones because of his unique playstyle where he does not crit. Obviously, if he doesn't crit, he doesn't receive any of that damage back. So either way, just make sure you stack a couple of regen characters or you bring in Crossbones. That will help you out greatly. So by far the most difficult part of dealing with Black Panther is, outside of the spiked armor, is his stun immunity. I know for a lot of people that is a real pain. We just get so used to using our parry stuns for everything that when we run up against stun immune characters, it's an issue. I would say what you're really wanting to do is bring in a character who has a strong bleed, which thankfully both Wolverine, X-23, and Beast all have strong bleeds, plus they have the class advantage. So those are probably my top three options outside of Crossbones. The reason for that is you can stack up your bleeds. They don't have willpower, so those bleeds do a lot of work for you while you're not having to worry about intercepting or anything like that. X-23 is by far, I think, your best option, not only for this fight, but for most of the fights. However, if you do not have her, or you don't have her as a, maybe a 440 or a 550, it can be done with just about anybody. I've got my 3-star Wolverine running up against Black Panther here. And really the only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you need to play it slow and you need to bait out specials. If you're not really comfortable with intercepting, you've only really got 2 windows to be able to attack, and that is when you have baited out specials and they are open after the animation, or you are baiting out heavies. Which you'll be baiting out a lot more specials than heavies, so I would not recommend bringing in a power lock champion or a power drain champion because that is going to limit the amount of times that they are going to be open due to their specials being baited out. So you can see it here. It just kind of plays over and over again. I do the same thing. I do a lot of attacking into his block. I do that not for the damage, which does stack up over a long fight, but more importantly, I do it to give him some power and to push him. If you are using X-23 or you're using Wolverine, I would suggest probably staying away from using your specials because your regen is based upon how much power you have. You really need to keep that as high as possible for the most effective regen. Like I said, if you don't have Wolverine, you don't have X-23, Beast is also a good option, Rogue is also a good option. You can bring in Crossbones. Outside of that, Doctor Strange is really not bad as well. He can nullify a lot of those armor ups that Black Panther is getting. Regardless of who you bring in, just make sure that you're playing him correctly by baiting out his specials, and you'll find the fight fairly easy. Magneto Marvel Now is the next character that you face after Black Panther, which feels very much like a step down in difficulty once you finally get through the stun immune Black Panther. There's really only 2 things that you need to be aware of. Obviously, outside of the spiked armor, both his Special 1 and Special 2 are unblockable. I find that if you're trying to evade his S1, the projectile he throws, and then dash forward for a medium attack, if you are at medium to long distance when you do that, he is going to intercept you. So unless you're very close, I just wouldn't try to do it. Because he is not stun immune, you can very easily parry stun him and have many other opportunities to attack him. So I wouldn't mess around necessarily with trying to evade the projectile from the S1 and come in and do damage. And then the S2, as far as being able to evade that, I had a lot of issues when he first came to the contest, the original Magneto. because every time I saw him kind of going up into the air to use his S2, as soon as I saw him come off the ground is when I was evading back. But that is not the correct timing. You need to wait until he is fully all the way up in the air, and that is when you evade back. There's a little bit of a delay there, and if you wait until he's all the way up off the ground and then evade back, you're going to have no issue. I'll kind of show that here, but that's the way to play around that. Rogue is a good option with her lifesteal and her S1. Obviously, X-23, Wolverine, good regen characters, good bleed characters. I also found Iron Man to be a strong character, not just for this fight, but I will point this fight out because he has class advantage. But the spiked armor is going to whittle you down basically to where your signature ability is going to kick in. It's going to heal you all the way back up, and if you are not taking damage outside of parrying and block damage, you're going to have a lot of health going into the next fight. So really, Iron Man, Ultron, Superior Iron Man, all those characters who have a strong regen like that are decent going fight to fight. They can kind of buff themselves up before you go into the next fight. I would say that if you're getting low on health, don't finish the fight. Make sure that you get that regen before you move forward. And then also do keep in mind, Magneto does have the magnetized ability, which can keep your regen from proccing while that's active. I think it's active for 8 seconds, down for 8 seconds. So do your best to get that regen to proc while you do not have the debuff on you. After Magneto is probably the easiest fight in the whole 4.1, that is Vision. He has spiked armor, which I'll mention again with every fight, so keep that in mind. However, his special ability is that his S2 is unblockable. He starts with 2 bars of power as well, but his S2, there's really no issues there evading that at all. The only thing I will say is that he is bleed immune, so the character that you may have been using, X-23 or Wolverine, is probably not the best option here. This is a really good opportunity to bring in Crossbones. He's going to work around the spiked armor, not take any damage there. And then also all of his damage being physical is going to help a lot, blowing through Vision rather quickly. Mine is at 440, my Crossbones is. I had no issue at all getting through this fight fairly easily. Another option would be if you did use Iron Man to get through Magneto. You can also bring him in here. He's a good option. Armor breaks, all physical damage. He'll work well against Vision. Just keep in mind, again, if you're getting low on health due to spiked armor, make sure you wait for your regen to proc before you finish the fight. Thor would be a good option. He would blow through Vision. However, I'm not sure how long he would be viable or could stay alive with a spiked armor. So technically, you could bring in Thor, you could bring in Phoenix for the class advantage to really blow through Vision here. Some other characters that you might have already brought in, Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, those would all be good options here against Vision. Not a difficult character, just do the best you can to mitigate the damage that you are receiving from spiked armor, and you'll be moving on quickly. Up next, after Vision, is Black Bolt, which Black Bolt is a fairly simple character as well. You need to watch out for the spiked armor, and you also need to be aware that his S2 is unblockable, which that may not sound like a big deal, but you do have to keep in mind his S2 animation has a very long reach. So even if you do not take direct damage, if he has got, let's say, 4, 5, 6 or more stacks of Fury built up, that S2, even through block damage, is going to be hitting fairly hard. So this is a great opportunity to use a Mystic Champ. Hopefully you brought somebody that has got a decent regen, whether that be Ghost Rider, Dr. Voodoo, Scarlet Witch, or Doctor Strange, who I found to be probably one of the best characters for Black Bolt. It's really easy to kind of keep him at arm's length and just let his specials build up and have an easier time evading those S2s. His S1 is fairly easy to evade. It's just like Visions, who you just got through. Outside of that, I found Doctor Strange regen, even though it's not necessarily real strong in and of itself. The damage you take from spiked armor is a very smooth kind of damage that you're receiving, and you can control it. So you can control when you're going to receive that during your regen state. And I had really no issue at all keeping my health full with Doctor Strange. The other thing is he's going to nullify all of those stacks of Fury and Crit that Black Bolt is building up, which if you don't have a way to negate those are going to build very high. And like I said earlier, if you're just taking block damage with a lot of stacks of Fury, you're going to still be receiving quite a bit of damage. So keep an eye out for that S2, try to bait the S1 as much as possible, and you'll be fine. Jane Foster Thor is next, which the Doctor Strange, if you were just using him for Black Bolt, is not a good option here because she does have a passive energy resistance buff. In addition to that, she also has a power gain buff. Now, I would not necessarily bring in a power lock or power drain champ specifically for this fight. I don't believe that is necessary. She is fairly aggressive in using her S1 and her S2, so it actually works a little bit against her. She's getting her specials constantly throughout the fight, and she's using them a lot, so that opens her up for opportunities for you to go in and to do damage. I think the one exception to that would be Rogue, because Rogue has got the lifesteal, which is really good for the spiked armor. She's also got the S2 power drain, so she's the one champ as far as power drainers go. If you wanted to bring her in, she's good for multiple fights for that reason, but she would also be a good option here. Crossbones you can bring back in, a good character for this fight to get around the spiked armor. He does all physical damage, so you don't have to worry about that energy resistance buff. Also a good opportunity to bring back in your bleed champs if you haven't used them for a while. Your X-23, your Wolverine, even your Beast would be a good option here. Strong bleeds plus regen make quick work of Jane Foster. The one thing that I will mention as far as her gameplay goes to keep an eye out on, her S1 from time to time can be a little bit tricky to evade depending upon how much distance there is between you and Jane Foster. I feel like the further away I am, the more difficult it is to evade. So if you're a little bit further away, you may be better off just taking the hit by blocking than trying to evade. It's much easier to evade her special 2, which you can very easily push her into an S2. That's usually where I played her at, was trying to bait out the S2. But the thing with that is you just need to keep in mind with a power gain, if she is at 2 bars of power, if she does manage to clip you and get off a combo of 3, 4, or 5 hits, she's very easily going to have an S3 because of the power gain. So just keep that in mind. Stay focused if you want to push her into an S2. That's the easier way to play her, but you just have to watch out for that. Venompool is up next, and I feel like he's probably the first difficult character that you will face since the first character in Black Panther. Because like Black Panther, Venompool is also stun immune, in addition obviously to having the spiked armor, which there's a couple ways you can try to play this. You can try to evade and intercept like any normal character, but I find for these larger characters, Venompool and Venom in particular, that are they've got these very kind of wide sweeping animations, and they are much quicker than you would anticipate them being. A lot of times when I try to evade back and evade through their combos as they're hitting me, I find myself getting clipped a lot of the time. So if you've ever watched my Rhino video, how to deal with Rhino, where I kind of back him into his corner of the map and do a lot of blocking to bait out heavy attacks, that is probably a similar tactic that you'll want to use with Venom. So really whoever you brought in for Black Bolt, whether that be Scarlet Witch, Voodoo, Doctor Strange, that's probably the character that you're going to want to use here. In addition to that, you always could bring in a Captain America. I know that he doesn't have a regen, but as far as block damage goes, you can't do better than a Cap, whether it be regular Cap or World War II. You'll probably just need to save them specifically for this fight if that's what you're going to want to do, because if you use them before this, they're going to take a lot of damage from spiked armor. But the tactic is, like I said, just trying to bait out the heavy attacks, baiting out the specials as much as you can. This may be a fight where you find yourself using a few revives on, and this far into the map, that's not a bad idea. But if you're bringing along, like I said, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, those I found to be good options. Your bleed champs that have got regens, your X-23s are also going to be good here. I would probably try to stay away from using whoever you brought for Spider-Man in the next fight, whether that be Crossbones or Black Widow, just so you can have them at full health going into that next fight. Spider-Man is next, and probably one of the most difficult fights here if you don't prepare for it properly. If you spent any time in Alliance Wars, you know how difficult Spider-Man can be. Thankfully, though, you do know he's coming, so you can prepare for him, like I said. This node, in addition to having spiked armor, has an increase to his abilities by 40%, so that means he's going to be evading 40% more. Really, you should be using Crossbones in this event. If you don't have Crossbones, you're going to need to bring in somebody that can lower that defensive ability accuracy, the evasion. So that would be Black Widow, like you're seeing here, Elektra, Karnak. You can bring in Falcon. All of those characters would work well. For me, I brought in Black Widow. My signature level is only 9, so I'm at 43%, plus another 15%, so it gets me to 58 because of class advantage. And in addition to that, I am running her with Quake, so I have an additional 15% to my ability accuracy. So my particular Quake, as you see her here, only has a 73% chance to not have evasion. And you can see there I was being way over aggressive, and he does evade me because it's only a 73% chance. Really what you should be doing, and Dorky Diggity Dave put out a great video on how to beat stun immune Spider-Man, but really same thing applies here. You know, if you are hitting him, especially while he is stunned, you know, while you get your parry stun there, never finish off the combo with a medium attack. Always try to finish off with a light. That way it gives you an opportunity to evade back if he does evade himself. With Crossbones, it can be a little bit differently because you know for a fact if you get to 5 stacks, that is 100% decrease to his evasion chance. So if you're at 5 stacks or more, you can be super aggressive and really don't be overly confident even when you have 4 stacks. Again, use the same tactic. Once you get to that 5th stack though, you can be overly aggressive and kind of take him out. Crossbones is probably the best character for this scenario just because you're already bringing him in for other characters to deal with. So he has a lot of utility throughout 4.1. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have got Nightcrawler as the final boss, which he does not actually have any additional buffs given to him outside of the standard global spiked armor buff that all of the characters have. I guess Kabam figured that he was a difficult character enough to deal with by himself, which I don't find him to be that difficult, to be honest. If he was a stun immune character, it would be much more difficult. But if you know how to play him and you know which form you need to push him into, it's a fairly easy fight. Each time the fight starts, he will be in his Neophim form, which you can tell that by the purple kind of dragon head buff that you see. Basically, that is the form he uses to evade a lot. So you want to push him out of that as soon as possible. And the way to push him out of that is to have him evade back, hold down his block. You'll see a timer pop up, and just keep attacking into his block until that timer falls off. And then you will see the Neophim form drop off, and you will see a double swords, kind of swords crossed. It's like a gray buff pop up. That's the swashbuckling form. He does more damage when he's in that form, but that's okay because he does not evade you. He doesn't get the extra evade from his S1. You can parry stun him, do a regular 5-hit combo. Don't have to worry about him evading back at all. So, you know, really at this point, you're just trying to use any character that you've got alive still, and any one of the characters that you have will be able to push him into that Neophim form. Obviously, you do need to keep an eye out for your health due to spiked armor, but if you've got 2 or 3 characters that have a little bit of life left, you should be able to push him into his swashbuckling form and take him out. Just takes a little bit of patience up front, but if you do take the time to move him from Neophim form, it's a much, much easier fight. And with that, you have completed the first quest in the final chapter of the Road to the Labyrinth of Legends. I know it was a rather lengthy video. I hope you were able to take a little something from it that will help you if you are struggling in this first quest. If you are struggling in later quests, like I said earlier, just keep in mind that those videos will be coming out, but it's going to take some time to put them all together. In the meantime, if you have questions regarding any of the quests, I'd be happy to help you out as best I can. But most of the questions I probably will save and answer in upcoming videos. Alright, as always, I appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. Until the next video, I will see you all then. Have a great day.